2022, something very, very different. You may remember that earlier last year, around episode 2 or 3, I discussed some of the interesting issues that were raised in the angling media around mental health being raised and fishing being a solution to mental health problems as part of the NHS's new programme. Well, since that time, one particular charity has sprung to mind many, many times, and it's been across the press, getting lots and lots of great plaudits. And it's called Tackling Minds. And we're lucky enough today to be with one of the main brains behind Tackling Minds, and that is Dave Lyons. So Dave, just before we get cracking, thank you for joining me. And I just want to ask you the question to introduce the organisation and the charity to the listeners.
So, thanks for having me on to start with. So basically, Tackling Minds, we use the many benefits of fishing, as us anglers know, to basically help people, aid people who are possibly struggling with mental health problems, addiction. They come from low social backgrounds, etc. So anybody who's generally struggling.
So how did the idea come about? I mean, I know of the organisation because you utilise a water from a club that I used to be in when I lived in Manchester, Radas, Rochdale and Angling Districts Society. I know that you guys have been taking people on there. So how did it come about, getting anglers on the bank, if you like?
Yeah, that's great. I didn't realise that you was a member of Radas. Yeah, a great water, and what a supportive bunch of people they've been as well. So the idea about Tackling Minds came about through my own personal struggles with my own mental health. I suffered, and still do to this day, with generalised anxiety disorder. It sort of led me on a bit of a dark path. I used to self-medicate with alcohol, and for me, it was my only go-to crutch that sort of got me through the day. And unfortunately, I sort of became really dependent upon that to the point where I was physically addicted to it. So over the last few years, I'm 18 months sober to date. I've really struggled on and off with my alcohol addiction. I've been in and out of detoxes 4 to date, and there was nothing more beneficial than getting back out on the bank. I'd not been fishing for going on to nearly 20 years, and that love for the sport has never left me. So yeah, I could see what it was doing for my mental health, my well-being. It was better than any medication I've been trialed on. I've been on 1,000,001 different ones, talking therapies, counsellors, you name it, I've been there. And again, doing nothing that compared to what I was getting out of fishing again. So I wanted to take that idea, knowing that if it's worked for me after struggling for so many years, it's surely got to work for other people. So I started a Facebook group. If it was helping out one other person, getting another person on the bank, then great. If it was helping a few others, then even better. And just things really gained traction from then on. It was picked up by a number of the larger tackle organisations, be it Angling Trust, and some of the bigger tackle companies. So Angling Direct and Shimano have been extremely supportive in what we're trying to achieve. Now, we've got a number of volunteers that help out. Without the volunteers, this wouldn't be possible. So, yeah, it was my idea initially, but I always, again, without the volunteers, we wouldn't be able to help out as many people as we do.
Which, one of the things that I think stands out, or a lot of people think about big tackle manufacturers and sort of bait companies and whatever, I guess they sometimes levelled at them that they don't put enough back into angling. And I think what you're demonstrating and what you're saying there is now you're starting to get back in. I mean, I had one earlier on last year when we was talking about with Keith Arthur about get hooked on fishing, which helps people with disadvantaged backgrounds, a lot of youngsters, have a go at fishing and just take the stresses and strains away from life just to go fishing for the day. And after that, we then got Tommy Pickering and Fuca. They sent a load of bait, and that was a real highlight for me, just by having that conversation, sparked an interest and then got the ball rolling and got some free bait to that charity. So it's not that I think that the tackle companies and bait companies don't want to help. I think it's just that there's not that many charities and not that many organisations that do the sort of things that you're doing. And now that you're getting a lot of exposure across the angling press as well, I guess it's growing from strength to strength.
Yeah, it is massively going from strength to strength. And, you know, to be recognised from some of the larger tackle companies, I think it is such a great thing that, you know, it's great what they do in terms of how they run the business and what they supply to us anglers. But, you know, to give something back to the sport that we all love is amazing. And to actually have received like the initial emails, or if it was a message via Facebook of, I mentioned the two companies, Angling Direct and the Shimano, but there has been a number of others as well. It was really overwhelming. And, you know, they've always said, if you want anything, if you need anything, just let us know. If it's organising an event, if it's tackle, if it's clothing for your volunteers, and that's just like the small part of it. And, you know, it's still sort of in its early days, and we are just like skimming the surface with this at the minute. But there's the support to come further down the line, and the ideas that we've got moving forward with the support of these organisations. It's got to be like really exciting, and just what the sport's definitely needed.
Yeah, well, for me, I mean, one small part from me, if this gets in front of one person that then maybe gets in touch with you guys, and we'll go through that in a bit, how we can get in touch and how people can sort of reach out to you, then that's my job done as well. You know, one small part that I can play. What I did notice, though, and I found quite interesting, we've seen some big names, obviously talking about your organisation and the volunteers, etc. The one that stood out for me is a bit of a hero of mine was Ricky Hatton. And I saw that he's involved, which is fantastic. And I also saw a great message from Matt Hayes the other day. So how have these famous faces, how are they getting involved?
Yeah, so getting Ricky on board was unbelievable. There is a bit of a backstory with Ricky and my relationship with him. So he's very good friends with my other half, Jenny. And when I was going through like my bad time with my addiction issues, Ricky kind of went out of his way to video call me on a number of occasions. Just, you know, he could resonate with what I was going through, and just used to phone me up and just give me that a bit of moral support. You know, it was, again, I use the word overwhelming. It really was. To get a phone call, to be getting that support of, you know, a 4 times world boxing champion, and things like progress from then. He saw me go through my recovery and come out of the better side of it, thankfully. And, you know, it wasn't long before I came out of detox. I got back into my fishing and came up with the idea. And, you know, I then got to know Ricky on a personal level. I'd go to his house. My other half doesn't live too far from him. So he became like pretty pally with him. And, you know, I explained what I was doing with Tackling Minds. And again, he could really resonate to the idea I had. You know, he always says, if it's boxing, if it's football, if it's, you know, fishing, if it's putting your mind to that a different output, and, you know, you're getting outside, you're engaging with other people, then, you know, it's a no-brainer. So, after knowing Ricky, like over probably just going over a year and a half now, a little bit longer, I was at his house one evening, and I ended up cooking for ourselves and a few of our friends, and just later on in the evening got chatting. And he's always like, he's such a down-to-earth bloke, and he'll always go out of his way to ask how I am, you know, as in how is my mental health and stuff. And we got chatting about Tackling Minds, as we always do, and he'd already been supporting the page through his social media. I just said, how would you feel about being an ambassador, you know, with your background, with your own mental health? And, you know, I didn't know what he was going to say. I thought there might be some legalities, because obviously he's also a brand. And he just, without any interruption, it was just, yeah, of course I will. And then before you know it, he said, this is what I can bring, this is what I can do, this is what I will do. So again, like with the organisations I mentioned, you know, things with Ricky, it's still very early days, but we've got some really exciting things that, you know, are in the pipeline that he's more than eager to help out, which is, it's unbelievable, really.
Yeah, no, brilliant. I love it. And like you say, he's had his own battles and coming out the other side with his gym and that. And, you know, he's found his way of sort of getting himself on the straight and narrow, and you have with the fishing. Have you got any examples? Like you say, it's early days, I know, but have you got any examples of maybe some of these early adopters that you've took out? They've been on Rad Aspen and other waters, done some fishing, caught a few, who have stuck at it and have really found the benefits and now become full-time anglers, or are they anglers already and it's just something that they want to do for their own mental health? Or have you got a mixture of the two?
Yeah, we've got a bit of a mixture of the two, but I don't know, I've got some unbelievable stories that like spring to mind when you were just saying that then. And then, so there was one individual who came from an organisation we work with called Healthier Heroes. Now they're Army veterans who suffer with PTSD. Ronnie, the guy is called, he won't mind me mentioning his name. And he used to he'd come along with the group one afternoon, and he stood behind everybody and was like, you got to sit down and have a go. And he just wasn't interested. You could just see it, just like, this isn't for me. And we talked him around, got him to sit down, sat fishing a pole at one of the commercial fisheries, and before you know, he's catching. So come to the end of the session, he's still there, sat down, enjoying himself, and the minibus was waiting for him to leave, and he's like, I don't want to leave. We had to tell him, you're going to have to go, otherwise the coach is going to be leaving without you. So he's one individual who now comes week in, week out. He's got himself a rod license, as the other guys who we work with from Healthier Heroes. Yeah, and they come week in, week out. They're learning. We've had classroom sessions with them, and they've now got their own tackle, and they're just really eager to get involved and want to continue. And again, some of them have said some great stories of, when they've caught some great fish. One of them, John, caught a fish, I think it was around 15-pound carp on the pole. He was saying, this is the best day out I've had in, I can't even remember. And just to hear, to hear that feedback and to get the impact, to see the work our volunteers are doing, is amazing.
No, I love it. It's just a great thing. I mean, now for me, it's synonymous. We're talking about Ricky Hatton. We're talking about my ex-club water, if you like it. So I'm thinking Northwest, but I guess that Tackling Minds is spreading its wings. And are the events currently happening or plans happening with other volunteers around the country?
When I first started this, and to this day now, the amount of clubs across the country who say, can we use your model? Can we use the name Tackling Minds to do something similar to what you're doing? And it's not quite straightforward because of the legalities involved in it, in terms of needing a DBS. You need your level 2. Somebody needs to have a level 2 angling coach award just for insurance purposes. But we are in talks with a couple of organisations actually to roll this out on a national scale. It's very early days at the minute, but we're due to sit down in the next few weeks to basically discuss getting it out across the country, which at the minute it's in Manchester. Just Manchester alone, we're inundated with requests for people to wanting to come fishing. So yeah, the opportunity to get this nationally is huge, and to help as many people as possible. So that's our aim, and that's the direction it's going in. So we just got to continue chipping away, doing what we're doing, and let's see what happens down the line. Well,
I just got to say a big, massive sort of thank you for joining me on the podcast today and sort of spreading the word. And we're looking forward to the plans that we've got moving forward. It's probably a whirlwind for you, what you're talking a year or so into it, and already things are growing massively, which is just testament to the hard work that you've put in, and obviously the volunteers as well, and the support from the various tackle companies. So just before we finish off, Dave, give us a shout as to how we can touch base with you, and if there are any clubs that want to get involved with this expansion, or if there's anybody up in Manchester, the Northwest, that want to get involved. So give us a shout out what they need to do.
So if there are any clubs or individuals for that matter who'd like to get on board and join the team of volunteers and help out in whatever capacity it may be, you can contact us via our social media pages. So there is Facebook, just under Tackling Minds, as it is on Instagram, or our email contact is fishing@tacklingminds.org. Yeah, and just drop us a message. We get back to everybody who contacts us.
All right, Dave. Well, thank you very, very much for joining us on the very first episode of the podcast for 2022. And I wish you all the luck in the world.
Thank you very much for having me on the podcast and, and showing us the support. I really do appreciate it. So thank you.
So there we go. That was Dave Lyons from Tackling Minds, giving us a bit of insight into the concept, how it came about, how his own struggles with mental health, born out this fantastic organisation that he's put together and is now sort of, growing organically very, very quickly. And fingers crossed to him and the rest of the team that this can be a national rollout and can help more and more people. Okay, well, moving on to the normal press pack, if you like, where we